A lot of new teams, they don't want to run a subnet. They don't want to run a token printing machine. They want to incentivize compute. So our job is, how can we simplify it and give them the best possible chance doing it, regardless of whether it's emissions flow, dTAO, whatever the underlying situation is. Me and my team, our job is to make that as simple and easy as possible so that they can focus on what they really want to do, which is innovate and use compute for whatever they want to use it for. It might take us a little time over the first couple of launches to get it right, but that's the aim. It's like I've said this before, but it's like an F1 pit stop. Come in, we inject you with all the things you need, fly out of there and just hit mainnet running, and you're not waiting ages on testnet, or you're not able to go live because you've got no miners. So we try and make sure that they're properly geared up before they even announce on the platform. So the final piece of advice I give is validate it. If you're not sure about what's going to work, mock it up on Figma, right? Do a couple of different versions, see how people take to it first before you do the full website rebuild. Like, don't solve problems no one asked you to solve, right? And if worse comes to worse, just ask people, what would you like to see?
Welcome to the Ventura Labs podcast. Today, we're joined by Chris, the founder of Bitstarter. In this conversation, he shares his motivation for self-funding the platform to combat post-dTAO market pressures. He addresses TaoFlow's impact and how Bitstarter, a YC-style accelerator with upskilling and crowdfunding raises, will function. Chris covers the details around launch timelines, leasing mechanisms, dereg risks, market tips, and the debut of their first launch, AlphaCore, a subnet for DevOps agents. Now, back to Chris with the 71st Ventura Labs podcast.
Okay, today we got MacroZack, the founder of Bitstarter. How are you doing today?
Hey, Grant, great to be here. I'm doing good.
It's good to have you. So let's just start with, what motivated you to self-fund Bitstarter?
I've been at Macrocosmos since like day zero. And for those who are new to the protocol, that was back when there were like 20 subnets and before there was subnet alpha. And I didn't know anything about Bittensor when we started Macrocosmos. Like, I was with Stefan Will when we were forming the company. There weren't podcasts. There weren't many podcasts back then. There wasn't much info, but it was easier to start a subnet because every subnet submissions were in TAO. And then like when dTAO came in, it was really exciting. And there were all these new tokens, and every team got a lot more like serious about their brand and their mission and like being a lot more public. But what gradually became clear was that the market mechanism of dTAO made it really, really hard to focus on the tech, because the short-term market signals were just so intense, the spikes and the dumps and so on, that new subnet teams were starting to ask us, like, how do you guys do it? Like, this feels impossible. Like, we get 18% emissions, and if we sell, like, the price goes down and we get fewer emissions, and we're in this death spiral. So over like the subnet summer that never happened, I gradually just started hearing more and more new teams just either go, we don't think Bittensor is worth it anymore. And then like warning lights like flashing in my head, like, this is not good. I even heard one team say, you know what, we'll just launch a token on Ethereum, then buy the compute with the Ethereum token. I thought, well, that's not good news, right? Like, we need the best teams building on Bittensor. But it's also because being here at Macrocosmos with Stefan Cruz, Macrocrux, he was CTO of Bittensor. He made Subnet 1. And in the first few months, first year really of building on Macrocosmos, we were seen as like the team to go to if you had a white paper or a question or a new subnet idea. And I always thought that the best thing to do on Bittensor would be to bring as many of the best teams onto the protocol and help them build. It's just a really exciting thing to do, is when you introduce people to it. So it's always been my like, oh, I'd love to do that. And then it was made urgent by the collapse of some of subnet prices over the summer, and seeing a lot of teams being like, these tokenomics just aren't viable. So that was where it originated.
How do you think TaoFlow incorporates into this problem of selling owner admissions?
Right. We have like a scenario modeling tool that shows you how much a new subnet will make in this conditions, how much alpha it'll emit per block from day zero. We had to redo all of that because of the TaoFlow change. And I can understand why it was launched rather suddenly. I think Jacob didn't want people trying to game the system. But overall, it looks like it will benefit new teams because it's all about the circulation of Tau entering a subnet, rather than, oh, these guys put 100,000 Tau in like the first day of dTAO, and they now have an unassailable lead because they've essentially like locked down really high emissions. So I think it will be a good thing for new entrants, but the key thing is long-term balance flow. Any startup will tell you that what you really want is like a steady revenue, so that you can make business decisions knowing roughly what your income's going to be. If it's uncertain, then you just don't know if it's going to be boom or bust, and it's harder to make decisions. So I think it will be good for new teams, but I'd be surprised if it was the final iteration. I imagine there'll be tweaks and it will change again over the next few months. But for us at Bitstarter, the mission really is to like decomplexify Bittensor. A lot of new teams, they don't want to run a subnet. They don't want to run a token printing machine. They want to incentivize compute. So our job is, how can we simplify it and give them the best possible chance doing it, regardless of whether it's emissions flow, dTAO, whatever the underlying situation is. Me and my team, our job is to make that as simple and easy as possible so that they can focus on what they really want to do, which is innovate and use compute for whatever they want to use it for.
I've heard you describe what Bitstarter wants to become as like the YC for Bittensor.
Yeah, man.
In this process, is it going to be founders come to you with just an idea and you guys develop it? Or what are going to be the requirements to be a Bitstarter subnet?
Great question, man, because I wasn't expecting inbound teams. As in, when I launched it, I was like, well, you know, this will probably take months to get off the ground. I officially got the domain on like 4th of September, 3rd of September. So, but then teams started coming to me. And then what I realized was it was just, there are loads of teams out there trying to like scrape GitHubs or go through Discords. They're trying to access the protocol, but it's just too complicated unless you've got someone who's already in the know. So in terms of being the Y Combinator, why are they so successful, right? It's because they get the best ideas and young entrepreneurs. They bring them into this like accelerator where they give them all the tools they need to do every aspect of their business. Commercial model, fundamentals, technology, the branding, so that it's like all the aspects of the business are integrated from like day zero. Whereas on Bittensor, it's like, we just need the subnets so that we can get the emissions, and then we'll hire a dev, and then eventually we'll go to mainnet. And it's linear because it's hard to get the funding to pay for any of that stuff unless you've already got the subnet. So it's like a catch-22. So we've had 17 teams now just get in touch. We haven't even, I told the web designers, make the submit a subnet idea button dormant because we can't handle any more inbound. Eventually, the idea will be we will go and pinpoint the best startups out there and offer to give them a fast track onto Bittensor. So we need to work. All the teams are very different that have come in. They have different needs, they have different like levels of maturity, technical expertise. Some are like commercially very savvy. Others are very like research based. So how do I go about creating like an internal team that can upskill them no matter what, like no matter which part of the cycle they come in at? So I think that's like my task. But judging by the quality of the teams that have come in, yeah, I think the next 128 teams are going to be much better than the first 128.
What is a common theme you've seen between all the teams that have reached out to you? And then also in that, well, I'll let you answer that one first.
Again, great question. I'm not even sure I could find a single common theme. But I would say that all of them are excited about Bittensor, as in, but they're excited about like different aspects of it, right? So some are like decentralized maxis who really believe in decentralization. They've just discovered Bittensor, and it's like this. I know that this thing is what I need, but I just don't know how to use it. Others are. They really like the TaoFlow tokenomics and the connection to Bitcoin. But most of them, it's because they've realized that they need compute and they need AI, and they don't want to be at the behest of the closed proprietary black box. They've realized, like, man, we just can't keep relying on like OpenAI or AWS. We just can't scale our thing. Sooner or later, our whole service will be beholden to OpenAI's terms of service because we're using, part of one of their models or their enterprise service. Same with Llama, same with a lot of the LLMs. And then the other aspect is it's just like, I need a lot of compute to scale. And Bittensor is like the biggest distributed network of compute. How do I get in? The hard part for them to understand is the incentive and validation aspect. So what I want to do is like take all the lessons we've learned from the last like 2 years and give it to them from day one so that they don't make the same mistakes that the old subnets did, but also that they understand, they start from like all the lessons we've learned, all the tools we've built, everything that already exists on Bittensor. Can we plug that into them where it's relevant, right? So there isn't one similarity I could point out, except that they're excited about the protocol. They need more compute, and they don't want AI that is proprietary.
Sounds like Bittensor a little bit. What is the expected turnaround time here? So say you guys do a crowd loan and it hits the limit. How quickly do you register a subnet after that? How quickly is code launched on that subnet?
Great question. So the first part of that is some of the launches will be they've already got their slot paid for through investors, but they want to crowdfund for their raise. Like, okay, so this person is paying, this fund has bought our slot, but we need money for like how we're going to basically build our subnet and have a runway. So what we advise teams to do, we have a tokenomics consultant, Ash Wu. He's just the best out there. Ash, I met at Endgame, and he is so he's so brilliant with tokenomics and with quant analysis that he's the one who created our scenario modeling tool. And so he'll sit down with the subnet and figure out, okay, if you put 300 TAO of the 400 that you're trying to raise, if you were to put that 300 TAO into your liquidity pool on the first 30 days, this is what it would do to your price. And so that gives them a kind of like extrapolation, like foresight on, okay, so we'd roughly make this much alpha per day. we could sell off, like siphon a little bit of that for our runway without harming the underlying like liquidity of the pool as a whole, which means that they're more likely to be able to fund hiring a team, building their website, building their product, without having to then keep cutting OTC deals. And there's nothing wrong with OTC deals. It's just they take time. More and more subnet teams, they're going around trying to like sell alpha tokens over the counter below market rates to then get the fiat to do a buyback. And it just occupies, if you're a team of like 2 or 3, you just don't have like the resources to like go through those investment meetings. So Bitstarter is like decentralizing it. It's decentralizing OTC, right? We can all be part of the OTC deal that launches a subnet. Other teams will do a newly registered subnet, and their terms might be that they'll purchase a subnet when it falls below, 300 TAO, whatever it might be. But all of the teams that appear on Bitstarter, they'll have to publish their raise. Like, here's what we've agreed to. It's been signed off by lawyers. And here's what we're going to do with the TAO. And here's the expected flow of what you'll receive in return and when. Eventually, when we get this process down, I think we can launch a team a week. Like, I think that given the interest in the first 2 months, I think that we can definitely have a faster cadence. We're learning as we go. And we'll also learn from like each one we do. We'll observe carefully what works, what doesn't, how best to gear the crowdfund so that it's successful for everyone. But again, in terms of getting them to Mainnet, between them approaching us and going live on the platform, me and my team, we're upskilling them on everything, right? As in, we give them advice on mining, incentive mechanisms, validation, and the panel that we've created, they also give free discretionary advice so that you're not getting your subnet and then going, right, how does this work? You've already gotten a lot of that stuff lined up and ready so you can hit mainnet running. And therefore, eventually, like Bitstarter backed subnets should just fly out the blocks, right? It might take us a little time over the first couple of launches to get it right, but that's the aim. It's like I've said this before, but it's like an F1 pit stop. Come in, we inject you with all the things you need, fly out of there and just hit mainnet running, and you're not waiting ages on testnet, or you're not able to go live because you've got no miners. So we try and make sure that they're properly geared up before they even announce on the platform.
And announcing on the platform means doing the Shark Tank live stream type of event?
Well, before the live stream event, what happens is that you would like there'd be almost like a Reddit style thread about you and what you're doing. And then the live stream would come in after that. So what I can do is I can give you a little kind of walkthrough. I'm going to share my screen. So let's go for the window. Okay. Great. So this is like the website as it currently stands, just the landing page. So Loosh, they're modeling consciousness through cognitive inference. We have our advisory panel, which also includes, as of a couple of days ago, Voon, Cameron of Leighton, and who helped to write a lot of the chain. So if you're Loosh, you would submit to me and my team. You can see below. All of us are founders. We've all built something. Brian, for one, built Subnet 25 protein folding from the ground up, and I watched him do it. And that became like a 2% subnet within a few months. it was him and Simon here at Macrocosmos, but they ended up folding more proteins in modeling the folding of more proteins in 6 months than folding at home managed in 20 years. So you have people who know like how you can get outrageous, like unreasonable results out of Bittensor. But the idea is that each of us works to upskill the proposal. So we originally get like a submission. It might be a white paper with a couple of like, maybe a slide deck. We give free advice, commentary. Basically we create like a recommendation. Here's how we would go about it. And then when they're ready, and they're happy with what we've proposed and they don't have to accept it, it then gets put through the executive summary and the white paper to the advisory panel. They give additional commentary about from their perspective and from their skill set. There are more advisors to follow, including Cameron Voon, who's joined. But the idea is that you get like a mixture of experts giving free discretionary advice on, I like your commercial model, but it would be better if it was a subscription. Or you should check out this project. They're doing something quite similar. Or this subnet tried this before and it didn't work. You might want to consider changing your IM to something else. If you want to change it, we have like consultants who are at hand if you want to use them to find you your full stack dev or to help you upskill your incentive mechanism or whatever it might be. But then when you're ready, you can structure arrays with Ash, make sure you're happy with how much TAO you're asking for, what you're going to do with it, how much of that is going to a liquidity pool, sign it off, and then this is the web app where your submission will appear. So this is actually live now at bitstarter.ai. So this is where our new projects will appear. If I click login, you log in via X or Discord. So I'm going to click X, and then I am in as MacroZack. So again, this is like the 0.9. Eventually we'll be able to carry through the profile pictures so that people can, right? It's a small thing, but it's important. And when I was briefing the web designers who are really brilliant builders, I wanted to bring the community of Bittensor over. I didn't want it to be like transactional, and like staking can sometimes feel like a string of letters and code, and it feels a bit cold and a bit like, you're faced with candles and charts and figures, but you lose a bit of the community element. So I wanted to make sure that people could see each other and talk to each other. So if we click Loosh, you're taken to their page. You can read about what they're doing in just plain language. You can see who the founders are. We'll connect to their X accounts and GitHub, white paper, website. And again, this is V0.9. We'll make this look like a proper dashboard. But got comments and questions? You can ask. So one of the things that is frustrating about Bittensor is that when you join, right, if you're interested in, subnet 63, you're interested in Bittensor, you join the Discord and it's like you're entering the middle of a conversation that you have no idea like what people are talking about because it's instant messaging. And therefore, if you're new, you got to figure out what people are talking about on the fly. You might make a message and then no one replies to you because everyone's talking about something else. And I remember feeling like that when we started Macrocosmos, going into other teams' Discords, trying to learn about them and being like, all of this is going over my head because it's like miners talking to miners or subnet owners about a subnet that I know nothing about. So, and very few subnet teams have got the time to like patiently explain to newbies, this is what our subnet does. This is how it works. Yes, there's X, but having a Reddit style comment, upvote, reply system means that actually it's easier to see popular comments. It's easier to see what to surface, what questions people actually have. And that's valuable data, both for the team, for investors, and over the long term for Bittensor itself, because everyone gets to discuss new teams in one place, and people know who you get to carry through your identity from other platforms, and you get to talk to each other about them. What's everyone looking for on channels like Subnet Summer? They're looking for like the next big thing. They're looking for the next new team. This is where you can find them. There'll be a submitter project, which will be like a template that will walk serious new teams through the process of submitting a project like Lease. That's dormant because we just can't handle any more inbound. But there'll also be a tab for like just submit your subnet idea, like a Reddit, like a subreddit, where people can just say, wouldn't it be cool if there was a subnet about this? And then people can upvote, talk about it, go, hey, I know a startup that does something similar. And eventually it becomes, you get these network effects where people can share ideas that they think are cool, but by upvoting them and commenting on them, we can actually see what the fans want, what TAO holders want. And then investors can see that too. And they might go, hold on a minute, there's 1,000 people all saying they want a origin of life subnet that explores chemical pathways that could have led to life. I think I know a startup that does this. We can do a crowdfund on bitstarter. If everyone's like saying that they'll back them, it's a much lower risk, right? So you're surfacing a lot of like preferences that otherwise are like scattered and loose. And finally, the pledge. So on the right hand side here, you see it's coming soon. This would have the full terms of their raise, how much every team are asking for. You'll be able to connect your wallet. You can connect multiple wallets natively, and then when you pledge, it goes directly into the Bittensor substrate. Doesn't go to my wallet, doesn't go to the team's wallet, it goes into the substrate until the raise is fulfilled. So the pledge goes live, we kick it off with the live stream. And that's what you were referring to when you mentioned the Shark Tank. And I like the idea of having an investor on who says if they're going to invest live on the show, but really the real investors are the TAO pledges. So it'd be like if this were a live stream, you know, and I were interviewing you, Grant, and you were proposing a subnet, I'd walk you through it and like ask questions like, hey, you're going to do this subnet. What gave you the idea? Just like you're doing that to me. And then I'd hand over to someone like Max, the subnet owner, who can then talk to them about the technicals, ask a few deeper questions. And then the idea was we then hand over to an investor who talks about how investable it is and says whether they'll contribute to the raise live on the show. But while that's happening, pledges are coming in and we can do shout outs. Hey, Keith Singery just pledged 20 TAO. Shout out to Keith, right? And we turn something that was like private and transactional into something pro-social. And then we can see who values what type of subnet. And really, if we do this properly and people sign in, connect their wallets, and they're interested, and we do a good pitch for the team, I'm hoping that we'll be able to raise them during the live stream. That would feel like a really big celebration and like collective success, you know, collectively launch them. And then it feels more like a movement, you know, it wasn't like an investment fund that brought them to the protocol. You did, we all did together. and we did it live, and you'd be able to see the subnet owners, the aspiring subnet owners' reaction on air when, at long last, after many months, they now have a subnet. So that's like the aspirational vision. And this Friday at 5 p.m. GMT, so kind of late evening, late afternoon UK. It's like midday Eastern. We're doing the live stream for the first time.
Okay. Are you at liberty to say who the first live stream will be?
I will be by the end of this show. But essentially, the main thing we're doing this for is for the new teams, right? It's not really about the show, and it's not even about Bitstarter, right? This is about how do we get the best teams onto the protocol quickly, safely, efficiently, and give them the best chance of success. I don't want to rush any team into like going on live if they don't feel quite ready. It has to be at their cadence. So with Bitstarter, it's been built by people like you and me. Like, you started this podcast, right? You just thought it'd be a cool idea and you started it, and here we are. Like, how many episodes later? This is episode
This will be 71.
71, man. Like, but at some point you just had to start and see how it happened, right? So in the same way with us, we're like, well, we'll do it as efficiently as we can, but we're gonna have to like be agile. Sometimes we might think we're going with one team and another team is more ready. We go with that team instead because it's better than rushing people into it. So Loosh will be at some point crowdfunding through us in some capacity, and I can't wait to share their full story because we published an article about them, but they are really an incredible team, both as people and what they've achieved in their lives, but also in what they've already built. And then when you look at what they're going to build, it's almost like I want in regardless of Bitstarter, Bittensor, or anything. This is just fascinating. So if that takes a bit longer to like fully tell their story and get them onto the protocol, that's fine. But I'm confident that they've got an amazing concept. So they were going to be our first team, and they're the first team that actually ever came to us, which feels nice and circular. But it looks like they won't be ready by Friday, which means we're going to go with a different team that are being announced imminently. Who I'm also excited to share, and who've been through the process with us, structured the raise, made an executive summary, and who are ready to start crowdfunding a new subnet on Friday.
What will the details of that raise be specifically? Like, walk me through the process for that. Like, y'all raise 1,000 TAO for XYZ and then it gets distributed.
So they'll say something like, okay, we want 400 TAO. And for each TAO you pledge, you're going to get back, say, 20 alpha. Hypothetically, might be 50, might be 20, whatever it might be. With that TAO, they'll say in the raise, we're going to put 300 into the liquidity pool from the first 30 days. And under the emissions flow, this is what we predict will happen to our price, even without other investors coming in, which once they've got the slot, no doubt will happen given what happened to Lee Poet and Sunday Bar. Those didn't even have like a pre-raise crowdfund, right? Let alone all the other stuff we're upskilling them with. So that way, what people can see is, okay, I know that if I pledge 1 TAO, I'm going to get 30 of this future alpha back. And if they don't make the raise for whatever reason, the TAO goes back to the pledger. I don't take a cut from the TAO whatsoever. Every TAO pledged will eventually go to the team. It just goes into the substrate first. Then what happens is, and again, there's several ways of doing this, but the default way is you're basically leasing a portion of the owner key, and then you get your alpha distributed to you in proportion to how much you pledged until you've been given all the alpha that's been entitled to you. So if you pledge like, say 10 TAO and you're entitled for that, say 200 alpha, you'll get that 200 alpha, you'll get a portion of the owner's emissions until you're paid off all the 200 alpha block by block. You might get, say, 10 alpha per block, and then it would take so many days for you to get your full 200 alpha back, right? So that also has the benefit of it's not a pump and dump, because you can't sell it all on day one because you don't get it all on day one. Well, the last thing we want to do is everyone apes in, and then the moment it launches, sell because the price spikes because they put all the towns in a liquidity pool. So it gives like a steady stream of income, both for the pledger and for the new team. There are other ways of doing it again, but that is the way, the default way that's in the substrate right now.
So is the team or is Bitstarter going to select the price for the investments?
The team. So Ash, the detail advisor of Tokenomics, he just sit down with them and go, right, how much do you need and why? I'll help you model it. And they come up with a way of going, here's what we need roughly. If we put it into the liquidity pool, it means that we'll get this much alpha per day. We'll sell 10% of that a day, or we'll do this much buybacks so that we keep the price high. Essentially, you're working out their 6-month trajectory of their emissions and then helping them calculate, okay, how can you use that for runway without making a price tank? Ultimately, what happens to a lot of new subnets is you get this big spike, then they have to sell in order to hire a dev or, buy compute or whatever it is they need to do. And then suddenly the price crashes because they've got low liquidity. And then they need to go and do another OTC deal. And it's week 4, right? Or they don't have proper mining or validation or even a full stack dev because they needed to wait to get the subnet before they could start selling the alpha to get them. And then they're stuck in this vicious circle. So by doing it this way, we create this long-term financial plan where we've scenario modeled it so that they've got a rough idea of what they're giving away, what they're getting, and what they can expect to receive in emissions. And as much of that as we can make public will be public, so you can see, and you can be the judge yourself. If you look at it tokenomically and you think, no, I don't think so because of X. I think the macroeconomic indicators are poor. I think then you don't have to pledge, right? It's up to you. It's like the same thing you do on TAO stats or whatever when you're trying to figure out, okay, how credible is a subnet? Do I want to stake to them? What's the APY? It's the same kind of thing, except you're getting a preferential rate because it's pre-launch, right? So we're hoping that people can see we're getting the kind of deal investors would get before it gets to market. It's you got 24 hours to get alpha on this new team at a discount rate. And then when it flips into a subnet and the price spikes because they put all that town liquidity pool, it's going to be a lot more expensive in 3 days, guys. So if you like the look of this subnet, now's the time.
What's going to be the standard time lock for the lease, or will it be a perpetual?
It basically depends on how much they want to raise. If you're we need 2,000 TAO, it's going to be a while before you've paid everyone back. But again, it depends on are you raising for both the slot and the runway? What are your existing deals with other investors? What rate of alpha are you offering per TAO? So it'll be different for different subnets. What we want to do is evaluate each one so that we can see what tends to work best. But eventually, a lot of the teams that we're structuring for, everything will be paid back within 6 months. In terms of Bitstarter, we take, if you launch with us and it's successful, 1 to 3% of owner emissions for the first 90 days. It's first 3 months. And then that's it. Because the less Bitstarter takes from them, the better deal they can offer pledges, number one, because they're not like, oh, well, Bitstarter's taking 20% of our own emission for the first 6 months, so there's less to play with, right? Second of all, they've got more to spend on services that are actually useful to them, like recruiting a full stack dev, right? Or like building their website or doing their social media. The less we take, the better they're going to perform longer term, because they're just going to be more agile. And eventually they will outperform subnets that are weighed down by like, of the 18% emissions, 30 is going to an investor for a year. So there's margins that are tight, man, especially with dereg, right? You don't want to launch a subnet and be worried about dereg after like a few months. It's just, we just won't have quality teams on the protocol. It'd just be too risky. So we're hoping that by taking a tiny amount, 1 to 3% for the first 3 months, we give them the best chance of like flying and succeeding on the protocol. Can't build like world leading AI conscious robotics overnight, man. Like they need time, and they don't need me like taking lots of their emissions. That's better spent doing what they need to do, right? So that's the kind of broad model, but we'll see what works as we do multiple launches.
We've seen other teams try this type of thing, but with a proxy wallet method, and sell off a percent of the owner key in perpetuity. They didn't quite reach the raises they were trying to get. What's going to happen if you guys fail to meet the minimum raise requirements?
Great question. So firstly, a lot of aspiring subnet teams that approached us, they don't want to sell their owner key in perpetuity, understandably. So leasing it and you get a proportion is much more like feasible for them. The second thing is that we can do a raise for up to 6 weeks, as in that's how long it can last for. And most of the teams that we're working with, they want like 600 TAO or less. Now, when we submit to the advisory panel, we do our best to make the aspiring team submission as strong as possible. Me and my team, Brian and the rest of us, Ash, we do our best to make the submission strong so that it has the best chance of impressing someone like, Cameron or James Altucher or Cefello, because we want them to go, hey, these guys are going to be really good. I want to pledge. Like, I want us to put some of the funding in, right? So having like several like representatives of several big TAO native funds on the panel, that helps, right? But if they want in, they go in with the crowd fund because it's going live on Bitstarter. So in the event that we didn't raise a team, and I'm going to make hell for leather to make sure that every team that goes through Bitstarter gets launched, like come what may. But some won't get launched on the live stream for whatever reason. Some might take a couple of weeks. In the event that they don't, the TAO just flows back to the pledges. If the epoch times out, TAO just goes back to whoever pledged it. So you haven't lost anything.
Why did you guys opt for a lease design over the Crowdloan design and launch new subnets?
In what way do you mean the Crowdloan design? Because this confused me at the start, so I just wanted to like see where.
So the Crowdloan palette, they have the leasing and they have a Crowdloan to launch a subnet, and so you can launch a subnet.
Well, you can still do that, but the Crowdloan to launch a subnet was TAO for TAO. It was literally loaned, so you get the TAO back, right? So that's still a useful function, but what new teams want to do is they want to liquefy they want to capitalize their liquidity pool, and they want to sell alpha. Alpha's hard to sell to investors because a lot of investors are like, well, we'd rather have equity or we'd rather have TAO because TAO's the token that has the Bitcoin style tokenomics. So you can still do that. The idea of the lease is that you get alpha before the alpha goes live at a preferential rate. They get to sell alpha at a rate that feels fair to them. That doesn't mean 30% of emissions for a whole year. And it means that you don't get the pump and dump that you normally do when a subnet launches. So it kind of solves several problems at once. It just has never been done before. I think technically this is the world's first decentralized AI incubator crowdfund. And that's a lot of abstract words to say that this is a kind that hasn't been done before. So it's exciting, but I wanted to make sure that it's not like pump.fun and anyone can submit anything and it turns into like Web3 Toys R Us and anyone can, which is why there's the panel. They're not gatekeepers. They're just there to offer advice, which is why come through us to upskill your proposal. If you look at other launch pads, virtuals, things like that, when you don't have enough gatekeeping, it just turns into like an absolute bazaar of, the bizarre, the unusual, the unproven. We never want Bittensor to be that, right? Bittensor is like, it's the protocol, like period. And I want serious startups building on it. Serious startups don't want to build their like AI, genius giga project on Ponzinomics. They don't want to have to run a bizarre token printing machine where they have to constantly keep up with minor cell pressure, right? We want to take that load off them so that they can focus on building their innovation, which is what they should be doing, right? It's just really hard to do that if you've got pump and dumps and if you've got loads of cell pressure and if you've got investors taking whatever little is left for owners. Bittensor just becomes less and less attractive. Top teams won't build on it. It's like, I want the best startups. I want Bittensor to be a no-brainer. Of course we go there. Why sell equity to a VC to buy compute for your startup when you could crowdfund a subnet on Bittensor, incentivize the compute, and get paid for using the compute? If you do it right, it's like, of course that's better. You keep 100% of your company equity. You don't pay for the compute. You incentivize it. Then you get paid in tokens. Like, not just tokens, but eventually in TAO, which is based on the tokenomics of the most successful like crypto ever, Bitcoin, and you get access to the world's largest network of distributed compute. It's like, when you bring it all together, it's like everyone needs to know about this. Everyone needs to be able to understand you can build on this. It's unreasonable that Brian and Simon could essentially vibe code something that folded more proteins than folding at home and did in 2 decades. It's like, what? It's like Subnet 13, we built the world's largest open source repository of social data in the world in like 9 months. There isn't a single H100 in here. We have like 2 data scientists. So if we can do it, why isn't there a Macrocosmos in every city in the world? There could be. There should be. But if it's a bunch of GitHubs and Discords and engineers talking to engineers dressed as like, space chimps, it's not going to happen, right? We just got to make it as easy as possible to like on-ramp and build a subnet that works and that delivers you what you need. So that's why I say Y Combinator, because we want to accelerate. We want to be the fast track onto Bittensor.
Accelerating the speed of new subnets also means accelerating the rate of deregistrations. In the event of a deregistration on a subnet under a lease still, say there's still 3 months left in the lease, what happens in that situation? Or is that just the risk you take by participating in this buying of future alpha?
Great question. We ultimately, when we were building Bitstarter, they changed the I can't remember what it was called, but TAO was burnt when you bought when you registered a subnet instead of. That was a head scratcher for a week. Like, we weren't planning for that. Then emissions flow, like, ultimately, to answer your question, we need to work that out and get it clear. But it's the same risk that you take on any subnet, right? Now, in the previous case, I remember talking to Dr. Nick about this, who co-authored the dTAO white paper when I was in New York. And he was like, yeah, when a subnet gets deregistered, it's okay because whatever liquidity remains goes back to the alpha, what were alpha holders. We need to make sure that we take precautions, that we protect pledges. But if your subnet gets deregged, you don't lose like the GitHubs, the repositories, the community, right? You can start it again and you can come back stronger. And if any bitstarter subnet had that happen to them, me and my team, we'd go right back to them and we'd help them get it back up again. And we'd do our best to make sure that it would come back stronger. Like, there's so much knowledge on this protocol, Grant. This everything we need is here. It's often just connecting people to the right people. Subnets get deregistered in part because they don't have enough backing in terms of they've got like 400 followers on X and they're diehards, but they don't have the publicity. And there's like maybe 2 founders. You can't spend all day on X, right? You can't keep chasing publicity. We're going to give them a huge platform. I want Bitstarter to be the hottest media property in Bittensor and eventually in Web3, right? And you've seen the effort we put into the marketing. That's all in-house and we're only just getting started. Like, it will get bigger than this. Because the work that the new teams are putting in deserves it. It deserves being celebrated, and so does this protocol, right? So they're not able to get publicity. There's hundreds of subnets. They struggle to translate complexity into simple terms, and they often are backed by investors who are just taking too much from them. It's not a moral thing. Like, if I want everyone in this protocol to be a multimillionaire, great. Like, you will back TAO, everyone works hard for it. Investors no less than anyone else. It's just not sort of viable. Like, it's like launching a ship out to sea with too much weight. It's going to sink, right? So Bitstarter, by taking so little, I think we have less chance of having the dereg problems, and ultimately their paper, their submission will have been seen by a lot of top people before it even goes onto the platform, right? So if anything, I think we've got less chance of that happening, but we will find a policy for protecting pledges from that, and we will maintain relationships with every team that goes through us. Eventually, I want Bitstarter backed become like a seal of quality on like a subnet, and eventually I want like there to be half of the top 10 teams came through Bitstarter. Proves that the model works, right?
What would be the reason someone would essentially buy future alpha through Bitstarter instead of just buying alpha on the open market when the subnet launches or goes live?
When the subnet launches or goes live, they're going to put a lot of TAO in straight away through the execution of the raise, and price gonna go up. So you're getting a better deal than if you wait. You could hedge and go, well, I think it's going to decline in value after 3 months. But my guess is that when you see some of the teams we got lined up, like 1 or 2, I'm like, this is better than anything I've seen on the protocol. I work for Macrocosmos. I've seen what we're doing behind the scenes on like IOTA and Apex, and it's seriously good. I'm like, these guys are way better than what I was expecting to receive. So it's like, well, either you can pledge one TAO and get like so much alpha, and you'll probably get you'll start receiving it in a few days, or you can wait until they put that 500 TAO into their liquidity pool, and then, like lead put went up 1700% in the first like week. People feel that they've missed out. Lead put subnet was, one of the least liquid, so that's quite an unusual scenario, but effectively you're saying you're getting the alpha before the pump. Like, you are the pump. And I think a lot of people on BitTensor, they end up spending their lives on all these different channels because they want to time it, right? They want to like get in just when the announcement happens, just when the cold key swap happens or when the announcement gets made. This is a chance to like get in even before that and do it together. So the Web3 platform builders who built Bitstarter of Arc, they built lots of other launch pads, and they said the problem you're going to have, and this was them speaking, not me, is that it's going to raise so fast that by the time people get to your live stream, like 10 minutes in, you'll already have raised and they'll be pissed off. And I was like, I hope you're right. That would be a nice problem to have. But their perspective was, you're going to have the opposite problem. You're going to have raising too quickly and then people feeling like they arrived too late. Obviously, it depends on the subnet, depends on the proposition, depends how good a job we do in attracting a crowd. No crowd, no fund. Hence the, putting a lot into visuals and marketing. But we just want to give these teams the best chance of success. And the better the teams on BitTensor, the better for the protocol, ultimately. I want the next 100 teams to be like way better than the first generation. In the same way that like the websites after the web browser were way better than the stuff in the early 90s in terms of usability, features, popularity, right? I want this to be like, okay, now we're all stepping up a gear. Now it's all going to get better, and we're going to enrich them with everything we've learned in the past so that they launch like where we were after a year.
In terms of the panel members, you guys have a list of about, I think, around 10 now, and you've name dropped a few of them. What incentive do they have to participate in this? What benefit do they have by being a panel member?
When I was pitching the idea of Bitstarter, I just went to senior figures in BitTensor that I trusted because I was worried, because I was really hearing a lot of bad stuff, and not just from new teams, but from existing teams, like different, not just subnet teams, but all the ancillary services around the protocol, just bad vibes. And you can start feeling when it's like, oh, everyone's kind of like in public on X, everyone's like, oh yeah, great, we've done this, we've done that. You speak to people in private, people were like, things aren't going so good, like we're worried. And when I kept hearing that, I told them we need to find a way of creating longer term like backing and advocacy for subnets. Who would be most willing to experiment with that? New teams, because they have the least to lose. And then it was like, well, BitTensor feels a bit stuck. Like with the cap, that was a good decision, but it also felt like it was the same money circulating around, like the same people launching new subnets. It started to feel like an isolated bubble. When we started Macrocosmos, there was like new stuff going on all the time. I remember being there at Endgame on the night that Cameron Voon launched TaoHash. Hash. He was showing me it like it's using Bittensor miners to mine Bitcoin. Like, and again, it was just, he had the idea, he kind of just built it, and it went crazy. It feels like it's getting harder and harder to do that in dTAO, which means you get less and less innovation. And then the real, like, the real big vision subnets, like, they have like a moonshot idea, they're the least likely to get funded because it's a long-term play, and dTAO really rewards short-term economics. So the reason I picked those advisors was mainly that I just started going to meet lots of different people asking questions, and the ones who really agreed with the problem, that they really wanted to solve it, they were genuinely concerned. When I showed them my vision, they were like, I remember one advisor saying to me, are you sure you want to do this, man? It's a hell of a lot of work. Like, I mean, it'd be awesome if you did, but are you sure you know what you're taking on? And I said, well, it'd be a lot easier if you agree to be my advisor. And he was like, of course. So it was really, I approached people that I trusted, that I knew were good actors for the protocol and who saw the same problems and who cared about fixing them, right? So it wasn't like there was some kind of deal in terms of they get some kind of early access, because they don't get to see the submissions. My team see them first. My team decide, as in the people I've hired, decide when we submit to the panel when they're ready. So then I realized that really what we want to do is have a representative from like a different vertical that can speak on behalf of, incentive mechanisms, mining, validation, whatever it might be. And then I realized, you're rushing to fill all the spots, dude. Don't fill them all. Wait and find the right people. So far we've announced 9. I want to find specialists in a couple of areas that are as yet unfilled. But the more we succeed and the more that we are seen to succeed, the more leverage we'll have to find top advisors, not just within Bittensor, but significant figures beyond Bittensor as well. Part of this is, Jacob and Etienne were in Asia recently, did a big tour, met a lot of different institutions in Asia. And part of the reason they did it, I think, is because they want Bittensor to be more global and better known. And if we just have advisors who just know Bittensor, that's great for getting teams into the protocol, but it also needs to be significant people from beyond the protocol who are interested in it, but who can advise beyond just Bittensor, who can advise about machine learning, AI alignment, open source, all the values that Bittensor is built on. And I'm reaching out to like senior institutions, and if it takes me 3 months to get the right person, it'll take us 3 months to get the right person. So not all the panel chairs are filled, and I'm willing to wait to get the best people for Bittensor and for the new teams.
What is the plan to drive adoption to your platform outside of Bittensor people that are already in the know? How do you bring in outside?
So important. I'm already approaching universities, because take Charles and Tensora, right? Charles co-founded Tensora in his 20s, and it's become the biggest mining consortium on Bittensor. And they worked super hard to make that happen. And now they've got a team of like 30 machine learning professionals, and they're experts at mining because they've done it all, they've seen it all, right? And it's like, I spoke to the mayor of Manchester recently, Andy Burnham, and I was like, are you even aware that this is happening? Because for me, it's like, just because it's decentralized, it shouldn't mean it's diffuse, right? It shouldn't just be like isolated pockets of. If we approach institutions, universities, let's do hackathons. Let's teach students these skills. Let's go in and do workshops on what this actually is and how to build on it. We can offer internships to the aspiring subnet teams, internships at Bitstarter. We could do the Bitstarter live stream at a university hackathon, right? There's no reason why this should stay purely on the substrate and online. I want it to actually I want to give these tools to others. Like, I'm amazed at what we've built on Macrocosmos in little under 2 years. If we can do it, I know others can if we give them the tools. That means going to institutions and like lighting the torch of Bittensor everywhere we can, and like getting people building, have a go. We'll do our best to help you. So in-person hackathons and accelerators, we prove it at 1 or 2 universities, and then we like franchise it. Again, this isn't a money-making thing. I'm not going to councils asking for money. What I'm trying to do is show them there's a huge opportunity here. Why isn't there a Giles and a Tensora in every city in the UK, right? Why can't we replicate that? We can, right? And that would ultimately be beneficial to the protocol. We get more miners, better miners, more subnets. Then the flywheel starts really kicking off. But it's hard work, because you talk about decentralized AI, people just go, don't know what you're talking about, or AI is bad because it's going to take over the world. And you've got such an uphill struggle to prove it. So what I like to do is demo IOTA to them. And I go, just look at this. This is a live training run. It's happening over the internet right now. Like, you can train from home, and eventually this is going to scale to 14B and beyond. So you know what OpenAI are doing? It's that, but over the internet, and we all co-own it, and it's open source. And then people start going, I remember pitching this to an OpenAI senior machine learning scientist, right? Literally met him in a bar, like in London. I showed him on my phone IOTA. He'd worked for DeepMind, then OpenAI. Never heard of BitTensor. It's been in AI for like 10 years, right? And I showed him IOTA, and he goes, wait, you started building this in May of this year? I was like, yeah. He couldn't believe that we'd done like Diloco and the compression and training over the internet. We launched IOTA we started building it in May. We launched it proof of talk in June. You can do things really fast on BitTensor if you know what you're doing. So I want to show like institutions, academic, public bodies, you should be giving these skills to young people right now, because that's how you're going to spread the wealth, the mobility, the opportunity that BitTensor has to offer. And that's how BitTensor can explore the problem space. We're not going to come up with BitTensor's killer app, but if we get to 1,000 subnets, that's how we're going to get there, by having as many people building on it as possible.
And the vetting process for the subnets launched on your platform is all through your team. And that primarily consists of Brian and Ash on the technical end. Who's
we
designers here?
This is the thing, man. We're having our first on-site this week, Thursday through Sunday. Jose Rios is coming, Max, several others. We want to make our teams stronger. Again, I've self-funded this, so I'm limited in what I can do. I am looking for the best incentive mechanism designers, miners, people who know what they're talking about. I can hire them as consultants that, should the subnet want to, can help upskill their proposal. I'm confident, Macrocosmos, we've run 5 subnets. I've seen a lot. Brian's built a lot, but it's like, we're not always going to be able to upskill them. If we submit to the panel and someone like Cameron says, yeah, great idea, but that IM ain't working, or that validation will not work, we need to be able to turn to consultants, experts that we trust to do that upskilling, because we're not going to be able to do it, right? That said, a lot of subnets launch and everyone knows that their IM doesn't really work and that they're going to just figure it out when they get onto the protocol. I'd rather not do that on Bitstarter. I'd rather have full confidence that this is strong and it's going to work. Where possible, we try and MVP it. We try and say to a team, look, tighten it up. Don't try and do it all at once. This is the part of your proposal that is most suitable to Bittensor. This is how it can be validated. This is how we can do an IM around it. If you're ready, we can now show it to the panel. And if they approve, then we start with the MVP, and then we figure out how we expand to your full roadmap. Some of them that come to you, they're just super ambitious. And it's like, guys, you're not going to be able to do this from day one. Like, staircase it, So that's part of it. And then the other part is like becoming like a really elite consultancy. Like, eventually the knowledge will build up from doing this over and over and over again. We will become like the go-to experts for how to do this. And it almost becomes like subnets as a service, as in, we know what works and we'll get better and better and better at identifying how to turn almost any submission into a subnet.
Will you guys have a requirement of code from day one, or is it acceptable to launch the subnets on burn and then, work on it over time and then launch someday in the future?
Another really good question, man. Basically, I'm doing this for new teams mainly because I'm trying to take the complexity out of running a Bittensor subnet. That said, as far as I'm aware, none of our teams have come with nothing. Some of them are, a little bit thinner than others. But if they are going to launch with no code, that's going to be clear on their raise on the platform. That'll be just like very transparent. And I just don't think they'll perform. I wouldn't want them to do that. And so far, none of them are doing that. Most of them have GitHub repositories. We can see their code working. They've done stuff. Like, actually, we've had more applications from serial founders who already have real world products, right? Who are like, hey, I need more compute. I heard about Bittensor. And it's like, you've already got like what most Bittensor subnets don't have, which is like real world ARR and users and a front end. And they're like, I just can't scale it unless I've got like this type of compute, or I need zero knowledge proofs. Otherwise, I'm stuck at this point. I can't scale from 100,000 users to 1 million users without further strengthening the anonymity of my product. So I think the problem we're mostly having is locking into a workable subnet design that serves both their existing product or team needs while also just being viable for Bittensor, which is why someone like Cameron is like ideal to have looking over it, because you want as many Bittensor minds as possible really scoping out, will it work? But actually, as far as I'm aware, none of the teams that we're planning to launch have no code. Like, if they do, it's kind of like we failed, you know? Like, yeah.
Is the main value add of going through Bitstarter the media presence of you guys and the consulting aspect of it?
Yeah. I want it to be everything. The way I thought of it was, what would I want if I was starting a new subnet? Well, the first thing I probably want is I want like a group of founders who'd been through it before to look at my work and give me honest advice and help me. And ideally, I want them to do it for free. Then I'd want them to shepherd me to the best people in the protocol, and I'd want them to look at it. And ideally, I want them to be influential people with lots of money who'd give me discretionary advice that I could take, but that I didn't have to take if I didn't want to. And then finally, I'd want to have the chance to show my improved proposition to a crowd of TAO holders where they could pledge to me, and I'd have the best chance of building a movement behind me of genuine backers and believers. And I'd like it if they didn't all sell on day one, preferably. That's what I would like for a new subnet owner. And that's what I've designed Bitstarter to be. And ideally, I'd like the people doing this for me to take basically nothing or as close to nothing as possible. 1 to 3% over 3 months. Like, that's what I would want if I were a new subnet owner. So that's what I've tried to do. What I'm realizing is that the key part is how effectively can we work as a team to go from submission to being on the platform in, say, 2 weeks? Because if it's 2 or 3 months, it's a lot of workload for me and my team, and it also delays their chance. So we've got to find the right people to plug in at the right moment, which is the consulting part, while also doing the publicity, the tokenomics, the IM all at once. But that's what if you want to be the YC of Bittensor, that's what it takes, man. Like, and I'm gonna do it until I'm proven otherwise, or like I just am outcompeted by others, right? So I'm committed to doing it. We've got great talent at our disposal. But if you know of an amazing IM designer or miner who's interested, put them in touch. Like, we're building this as we go. And it's certainly not going to be me writing their IM, because God help the subnet that I'm writing the IM for.
Well, MacroZack, I got one last question for you here today. Well, I don't know if you wanted to cover Alpha Core or...
There you go. Absolutely. So I'm going to give this the briefest little teaser, but we've announced Lease. There's a lot of excitement about Lease. We've barely begun to tell their story. We're confident that they'll be launching on Bitstarter soon. But there's another team that is really, really ready to go, and is they've already done a lot of work, and they've already built a lot of their product already, and it's pretty exciting. And the advisors that have seen it were like, damn, I'd invest in that. Like, when does the crowdfund start? So without further hype, I'm gonna just present one slide. Autonomous DevOps agents. This is Alpha Core. They will be launching, all going well, this Friday on our live stream. We'll have information about them on our platform. They've already built a lot of this. They've got, you can check out their GitHub. The founder has been a miner on Bittensor for a long time. And it's essentially the design of the subnet. It's kind of like Ridges, but for DevOps agents. So they are well backed. They've given it a lot of thought. The founder has been deep in Bittensor mining. We will be publishing an announcement article, just like we did for Loosh, about Alpha Core. And we will also give other people a chance to dive into their material, their white paper. We'll be sharing that via our channels, Bitstarter, Telegram, and theirs as well. And then again, all being well, on Friday, 5 p.m. GMT, you will be able to pledge, as you will eventually with Loosh. We'll have Alpha Core here. You'll have their raise here. And if you sign in like I have, then you'll be able to connect your wallet and pledge to them. So on Friday, what we will do is effectively introduce the founder, ask him questions about the basics of the subnet, its design. We'll have a subnet owner on the show to further quiz them, and we'll be raising them together. So we'll launch the crowdfund with the live stream. And I mean, Ridges, but for DevOps. Again, I think it could be pretty popular, and I'm confident that they've got their design right. So excited to share more about them in the next couple of days.
And that will be Bitstarter's very first appearance this week.
It looks like it. You know, I wanted to call the live stream novelty search because it's like novelty search, but for teams that don't even have a subnet yet. Now that novelty search is actually ending, you know, I asked Jacob if he'd be interested in being on our live stream. He was like, hell yeah, I want to be Simon Cowell. Like, I want to be the guy like tearing these proposals apart. He's like, just line them up, bring them all in one by one, and I thought, I'm not quite sure that they're going to enjoy that as much as you will, but at some point we will. It'd be lovely to have Jacob on the show, but really it's about giving the founder of the new subnet the best chance of finding their people, like just speaking out their vision. It's really hard, like, getting people's attention when there are already so many subnets, so many talented people. How do you go about building a profile for yourself? We want to give them a platform that allows them to like really state their vision, how they came to it, what they plan to build. We're not going to like give them an easy ride, but they need a chance just to like say what it is and how they see it working. So it'll be a mixture of like conversational, technical, and also like tokenomic and like financial, so that you can see the full roadmap and future vision. So to me, it's like, well, that sounds like a pretty fun gig, doing that every week, introducing a new team and like seeing how the protocol takes to them. And again, if you were to go to let's say you were to go to our website, you would be able, if you've got questions about Alpha Core, go ask. Like, go and, you know, make comments, upvote, and then our team, the founder, advisors, together we can make them stronger. We can spot opportunities. We can connect them to the right people. We can get them off the ground together. We create like collective success instead of like people rushing to ape in and then sell as fast as possible. So, I had this feeling, Grant, that especially over the summer, in all these channels, you're probably in them too, right? Like all the different channels on Telegram, Discord, everyone's talking about like, how much is this going to go up? Do you think TAO will be 4 figures by? I'm like, guys, TAO's not a lottery ticket, right? The one thing that Jacob has taught me, that BitTens has taught me, if you want to make it better, build it better. Build it better. That's what BitTens is about. You want the token price to go up, go build something worth investing in, right? At the moment, it's just really, really hard. And I want to make it easier. I want to make it easier to build. And that's the inspiration for Bitstarter. Make it as easy as possible for the best people to build the best things on this protocol. And then I think if we do it right, BitTens is unstoppable. Like there'll be nothing in the way of us becoming the number one protocol in the world, period.
Well,
No pressure.
Now I have one last question for you. And that is Bitstarter, this whole endeavor required and will require a lot of marketing efforts, which you guys have already been displaying your marketing savviness via X and your website. What advice would you have for people and or subnets and or validators in Bittensor that have something that they're trying to market, and what advice would you have for them in terms of marketing?
Really good question, man, because the marketing, like, there's a lot of thought went into it. My background is in like journalism, editorial. I worked for a few ad agencies. I learned a lot about communication. And the number one thing about communication I've learned is make it about the other person. Don't make it about you. Talk about others, right? Don't go out there saying, we just did this amazing. Start the other way around. Hey, aren't you sick of the traffic jams on this highway? So are we. So instead, we created this solution. So you create like rapport over this shared problem and a shared vision. Like my advice would always be start from the problem that you share with your audience and go, isn't it bad that like, aren't you sick of like having so many tabs open that you can't even like think? They're like, yeah, I am. Well, we developed this thing as opposed to our solution is the market leading. You've lost me already, right? Because you haven't related first, right? It's just, if I came up to you in the street and just started talking about my achievements, you'd probably be like, yeah, sorry, man, I've got things to do, right? Whereas if you approach with a shared problem, that's the key, right? Now with Bitstarter, the reason we went for like 8-bit, remember when tech was fun? Remember when it was friendly? Remember when it wasn't scary and like going to take over the world? It's this feeling of like we're the underdog, right? But also it's a time when technology felt playful and approachable and like anyone could have an inspiring vision and make it a reality because it was just much simpler. I think a lot of companies make the mistake of trying to seem like everyone else to make themselves more credible. Oh, we're an AI company, so we've really got to seem high tech. So we've got a really slick website. Really? Did anyone ask you for that? Is slick and high tech really what people want? How do you know that? So the final piece of advice I give is validate it. If you're not sure about what's going to work, mock it up on Figma, right? Do a couple of different versions. See how people take to it first before you do the full website rebuild. Like, don't solve problems no one asked you to solve, right? And if worse comes to worse, just ask people, what would you like to see? Like, one thing that really worked well for Macrocosmos was whenever people commented on our X post or something, just reach out to them and go, hey man, seeing that you're interested in our stuff, do you want to come into our like company Telegram and like just help us work out some ideas for what we should do next? Like what data source we should scrape on SN13, or, what you'd like to see from our Discord channel. And most people are like, yeah, I'd love to come backstage and tell you my ideas. again, it's reciprocal, right? It's like you're sharing, you're not just taking, and then you can learn how your audience really feels. So don't make it an announcement, make it a dialogue. But it's hard work, and respect to all the subnet owners out there trying to run an X and a Discord and a Telegram while running a subnet is super, super, super hard. So even if you're just posting once a week, like props, because even that's hard. And tweets can take hours, and you know it, and I know it, right? So we're doing the best we can with marketing. We're going to upskill all the teams that come through us and give them all the advice we can. But ultimately, it's about finding advocates, true believers, people who do your marketing for you because they really believe in your vision. So if you're authentic, you'll find them.
Chris, well, I appreciate you coming on today, MacroZack, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to your live stream this week. So everybody tune in, and
Thanks,
thank you
man.
for coming on the podcast.
Grant, thanks for doing what you do, and like your regularity, constantly talking to people, inviting them on the show, publishing what they're doing, that does so much for this ecosystem. There are so many people like you who've made this like possible. So like Bitstarter is like, it's like a gift back to the community, right? And just like your podcast is a gift to the community. And it's free, and it helps us become like a real community. Like we know each other, right? So thank you for what you're doing. Wish us luck on Friday. Tune in, and yeah, if you like the look of Alpha Core, Friday, 5 p.m. GMT. See you there. Otherwise, see you maybe the next week for Team 2.